Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, early this morning here on Monday, it was a pretty soggy day as we get over into parts of the Appalachian Mountains. You can see here in this radar animation some of the storms that were moving over the Appalachian Mountains toward Raleigh early in the morning. I want you to be watching the radar if you want to see something interesting here over the next 24 to 48 hours, and that is we're watching a system slowly develop here off the coast. There's quite a bit of tropical thunderstorm activity there, and there is the potential, about a 70% probability that this develops into a tropical system and may get named. Good news is it's going to be moving away. It's going to be moving out into the open Atlantic. So what's coming behind this? Well, I want you to watch this corridor right in through here very carefully, because throughout this week we're going to be seeing the jet stream level pattern influence the low levels of the atmosphere to be transporting moisture out of the Gulf across parts of like the Red River Valley, then into parts of the Mid-South, and then eventually here over in toward the Carolinas. While all of that's happening, we're going to be seeing a major change in the jet stream in the northern part of the United States and coming out of Canada. In that, like early this morning, we're going to keep dropping these troughs into place that are going to cut into the mid part of the country. Now, something to point out here, for those of you that farm corn and soybeans in North Carolina, this region right in through here has been very, very dry throughout the month of August, and there is some precipitation moving through that area this morning. No, it is not heavy, widespread rainfall, and it's possibly too little too late. I'll elaborate on that in just a few moments. But keep this map in the back of your mind as we start to work into the forecast. Before we do that, though, I find it quite instructive to go back and do a quick review of the month we just finished. So here's a look at what we call cumulative downward solar flux. In other words, how much of the sun's light actually makes it through the atmosphere, through the clouds, down to the surface. If you see these colors, we're talking about a surplus. In other words, more clear skies. Where you see these colors, we talk about a deficit. In other words, it was quite a bit more cloudy. Now, if you look across the state of North Carolina, you can almost divide it right there. You get to the east of that line, and we saw more sunshine than we did compared to normal. Whereas you get to the west of it, especially as we approach the mountains, there were time periods throughout the month of August that were a bit more cloudy, and therefore there was a reduction compared to normal in the amount of downward solar flux. In other words, how much energy got to the surface. A couple of other things to point out. Right in through this wedge, if you notice just to the west of that wedge I drew there, we actually had quite a bit of additional sunshine because it was very hot and dry at times in through here. And one other very interesting thing to point out, come over here to California. You see the bluer colors? That was primarily because of smoke from wildfires, not letting the sun's light get down there to the ground. Very interesting thing to see there. When we look at the entire month in terms of temperatures, we look across the state of North Carolina, you can see how the numbers by climate district as you get over toward the coast are certainly showing warmer than they are as you get back toward the Appalachian Mountains. One of the big reasons for this, well, had to do with sunshine. It also had to do with the way that the temperatures behaved in the middle part of the country. You can see that overall favoring near average to cooler than average weather in the mid part of the United States, while the West absolutely baked during the month of August. But with any temperature record like this, it's sometimes hard to look back at a whole month and try to characterize how the temperatures behaved. For example, if we just look at the last week, well, much of the Corn Belt was very, very hot, and we were above average in terms of our temperatures in both of the Carolinas as well during the last week. And so when we think about this, let's think about it one other way. What I did here is I tossed in a figure that is for Raleigh, all right? When you look at this figure, remember, those blue bars, the top of them represent the high temperature for any given day, and the bottom is the low. We actually saw throughout much of the month of August really near average temperatures. We were coolest mid-August, right in through here around the 17th, and have steadily since then built our temperatures back up, such that much of the last week, like we just discussed, was above average. Question is, where are we going with this temperature pattern? We're going to get to that in just a few moments. Now, to show you a couple of other interesting maps, for the month of August, how many days did we spend above 90 degrees? We can see it here across the country, but let's zoom in on North Carolina. On average, we spent just under half of our days here as you get over into the eastern side of the state with temperatures above 90 degrees. So really not a lot of prolonged high heat stress as we just saw. And we can do the same thing with respect to temperatures above 95. Most of the state did not experience really, really hot temperatures. Yes, it was humid at times, but the high heat really stayed away. Where was it? It was in Texas. It was down in the southwestern United States, which, by the way, Phoenix smashed an all-time record for the number of days so far this year with temperatures above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. They've had 55 so far. The second place runner-up here had 33. That was 2011. From there, let's now take a look at our precipitation. Now, we know that going back over the whole of the last month, much of the mid-Atlantic down through the Carolinas was very wet. It was quite dry in this area, so you corn and soybean farmers pay close attention to that region. And why we see such wet conditions in parts of Louisiana and Arkansas, well, this was primarily from Hurricane Laura, which came through last week. Now, keeping this in context here, I would like to show you just the last 14 days, though. Remember that map I showed you of sunshine? Well, you can see that much of the eastern part of North Carolina has been dry over the last couple of weeks. We've had just spotty hit-or-miss storms, and most of the area is showing up with the drier bias. Whereas you get over into the western side of the state, where there's been more precipitation, we've also seen cloudier conditions. But again, notice the dryness that is in this part of the United States, much of Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, southern Wisconsin, Nebraska. And those are some key areas which we produce a lot of corn and soybeans. Critical to keep a close eye on that. Soil moisture in those areas is very, very low. This is looking at the top 4 inches of soil moisture, and it extends not just there in Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, but also here into the eastern Corn Belt, even into Pennsylvania. So something to think about there. Meanwhile, across much of the state of North Carolina, we're looking at a surplus, except for a couple of pockets right here in this part of the state. We'll keep a close eye on that as we press forward. Soil moisture change maps are also instructive as well. You can see the influence of Laura, and you can also see the influence of that early in the month precipitation pattern that stretched from North Carolina into Virginia, Maryland. But again, look at how dry things have gotten here in the midsection of the United States. Well, over the last week, we can see same pattern here with our tropical systems coming in like this, Marco first, and then Laura, some very, very heavy rainfall in and around the lower Mississippi River Valley. But take a look over here at North Carolina, wetter in the Appalachian Mountains, and there were a lot of folks that went this last week without much precipitation once you get, east of the Piedmont here, getting over toward the coast. So with that, how well did the models do forecasting that? Well, if we take a look back, this was the old week 2 forecast, which I gave you last Monday. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of understand where this forecast is going by taking a look at the latest data. Now, we noticed that the models were drier closer to the coast and wetter as you got back farther to the west. That's, again, the forecast for this week. Well, here's the new forecast for this week, and it shows a similar thing. If you're in this area, the chances of being on the drier side of things is relatively high. Not saying we're not going to see precipitation, but drier. But as you get back here, notice wetter conditions here as we get into the Appalachian Mountains. And this area over here, extremely wet over the coming week. All right, what's setting all of this up? Now, this is pretty interesting. You see, the jet stream's really broken up into a couple of pieces. We have a large ridge off the coast, this one right here. And honestly, that's probably our most important piece moving forward because that ridge is going to attempt to block up the flow. What it's doing is downstream, it's sweeping through troughs that are coming through and heading in this direction. The second piece to the jet stream flow is right in through there. And that's what's going to help transport that moisture, like I said, in and around and pull it eventually here from west to east across the Appalachian Mountains. All right, so keep that in mind moving forward, all right? Now, over the next 3 days, Storm Prediction Center is keeping an eye on us for scattered storms. You can see it in the top left map, that's today, the top center map, that's tomorrow, and the upper right, that is the day on Wednesday. What does it look like? Well, this is a forecast from our high-resolution NAM model as to what the radar may look like. So let's get it right here to early this morning. Model did a very good job. Watch that again. Very good job picking up on the precipitation. So that was through 6 a.m. this morning. As we press through the day, you can see the circulation. Watch it right here. I'll kind of go back and forth. The circulation and potential development of a tropical system that may bring some scattered showers right to the coast midday today. But what we're going to be watching for, widely scattered showers and storms throughout the day here in central North Carolina. And that is going to be kind of what we're going to be seeing, not just today, but into the evening hours. Now, overnight, again, just scattered showers, but notice where the moisture is. It's back here. As I play this forward, what we see is, again, tomorrow, that's another day where we're going to be getting into our chances for scattered showers and thunderstorms. And that's really going to be the name of the game through middle of this week. So let's just take a look at how much precipitation we're talking about. And we'll start with the GFS model. The GFS says, hey, some of those storms might be able to put down upwards of an inch of rainfall. But again, can you see the transport of moisture behind it? Okay, so maybe upwards of an inch of rainfall. The European sees a similar forecast here, and it is just like the GFS, drier as you go toward the coast. So much of this rainfall really tucked into that area, the area that I just highlighted there. but very good agreement on where that moisture is coming from. Now from there, take a look at the jet stream pattern. Ready? Let's get this playing. I'm going to pause it right away. You see, by the time we work our way toward the end of this week, this is early in the morning on Friday. See this high pressure cell? Well, the flow is coming around just like that. And as we go from there forward, what we notice is this ridge out here is allowing the jet stream to really dive into the middle part of the country by the time we get into our weekend. And our pattern into week 2 will likely be dominated by this deep trough. Now, what does that mean towards precipitation? Well, let's first look at the next few days. Because, like we talked about, around that ridge, see the flow doing this? All the dry air is here. So there's a high moisture axis that runs right in through here. And as a result, we could be seeing toward the end of our week chances for some scattered storms. Now, if you notice, both models, though, want to keep the wetter weather just to our north. You see it? What I want you to be watching this week is to see if for any reason that high moisture axis air gets pushed farther to the south. Otherwise, you're going to finish your week and start the weekend with only scattered showers and storms like we expect this time of year. And the good news is no big blocking high to shut it all down. As we get out into week 2, though, take a look at the pattern. Big ridge into the west in both models. See that? And that allows the pattern to stall out with a trough over the Aleutian Islands and a trough in the midsection of the country. Both the ECMWF and the GFS are saying the same thing. What will be important for us is the position and strength of this ridge off of the east coast. Now that'll play out on our temperatures, but also on our precipitation. Precip first. Both models are picking up on a wetter pattern into week 2 for the Carolinas. And again, that's because the jet stream is trying to do this. And if that ridge is sitting off the coast pumping that moisture around, well, that could increase our chances of being wetter than normal into week 2. What is good is, again, nothing blocking this pattern up over the Carolinas to send us into a super hot and dry September. From there, what am I going to be watching? Well, this map shows you ocean temperatures today. What I want you to take note of is that inside this area, we have got very, very warm ocean temperatures. They are, in some locations, between 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above average. Where Laura went through, we've cooled things off here, but the temperatures over here are very hot compared to normal. So we have to see if any tropical system could be moving in there. Over the next 5 days, what is the National Hurricane Center watching? Well, we've talked about this system developing and going offshore. There is something that's given right now an 80% chance of developing here in the Caribbean, but at best this is going to be moving here over toward the Yucatan Peninsula and may make it into the Gulf. What I want all of us to be watching is anything coming off of Africa. While right now the National Hurricane Center is only giving this a 10 and a 30% chance of development, the point is that we're very active off of the west coast of Africa. And with those systems developing, so you can see them here, you can almost get a sense for the way that the atmosphere is going to steer anything that comes across the open Atlantic. We can even see it better by looking out into the middle of the month of September, which is the peak of the hurricane season. The position of this high pressure ridge is going to be critical for guiding any tropical system that comes off of Africa, potentially toward the warm water that's sitting there and the Carolinas. Now, while nothing right now is kind of waiting in the wings to do this, what I'm trying to explain is the dynamics of the flow of the jet stream are set up to give us something like that. So I need us to be very weather ready and weather aware over the coming weeks, because remember, the peak of the hurricane season is September the 10th. From there, let's talk temperatures. Today, a cooler day where the rain is, of course, right? But as we play this forward, this is going from Monday into Tuesday here. We're going to see near average temperatures throughout the day on Tuesday. Again, it's going to be scattered showers and storms on Tuesday. Into Wednesday, that's going to be our warmer day. As we work our way into Thursday, it stays hotter than average. Same thing for Friday. That might be our hottest day right here of the week on Friday. And then we'll pull into the weekend with a bit of a cool down as that trough digs in. So now we're talking about temperatures back in the 80s here, and that's going to last from into Sunday as well. What about getting out into that longer term? Well, here's the 6 to 10 day forecast. What's the jet stream doing? It's coming over that big ridge and allowing for a deep trough to sweep through this part of North America. Now remember, we also had another ridge sitting here, which is what's more than likely going to keep us near average to above average, like the European model is saying here in the Carolinas. So a warmer time period as we go into that 6 to 10 day, while we have a big cool down here in the midsection of North America. That is lasting. That same pattern is lasting all the way into the middle part of September, as you can see here. Now, if we're talking mid-September, we start to see cooler weather in through here. Big question on a lot of these folks' mind, and we should talk about this, is there risk of frost? So I'm going to play out an animation for you to tell you. At this point, do you notice how we do not see high probability, which would be these colors, showing up for frost right in the midsection of the country? Maybe it gets a little cool here, but this is up in the Canadian prairies on September the 9th. But other than that, we're not worried about an early frost at this particular point. From there, let's stretch this out to a longer range forecast as we work toward the end of this video. Week 3 and week 4, that would be September 14th through the 20th and the 21st through the 27th. What I would like for you all to see is during that time period, the models are keeping things active and wet in through here. Is this because the model's picking up on tropical cyclone activity? Potentially, but we need to watch it very carefully for other reasons as well. Then you see that out here into the 21st through the 27th, we are once again seeing above average precipitation. Both the ECMWF and the CFSV2 are picking up on that. Temperatures, keeping this area cool, but we're noticing that above average temperatures will likely be up the East Coast throughout much of the month of September. So the models are keeping that as the main feature looking longer term. Here's one last thing I want to talk about. With the strengthening of our trade winds and the developing of a La Nina right now, okay, as we go into fall, the MJO has kind of stalled out over India. What this is doing to South America is continuing to make this area show up dry for the month of September. Why that's important is a lot of early season planting could happen middle to end of September for Brazil's main growing area. If there's any delay in that, okay, it's not going to be that big of a deal for the first crop of soybeans, which we're anticipating to be huge. The acreage expansion in South America might be as much as 5 million acres this upcoming growing season. But by delaying the planting of first crop soybeans, that could be critical to the way that this would maybe push back the safrinha crop for corn and cotton later. So we have something to be watching here in South America, and this extra dryness during the dry season is a critical component of that. Okay, hope you found this video instructive and useful. I hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next Monday, all right? Thank you so much.